server at your favorite restaurant, your last Uber driver, the little old lady you see getting her mail every morning. Everyone's got a story. What's yours? Snowy days always bring back the memories. I remember my kids when they were just little, and we lived on a place called Turner Reynolds Court, and we had that wonderful hill in the backyard, but no sled. We made the best of it and slid down on our backs. You know, we put our coats on, and they were slick, and we would just lay on our backs and just slide down. My son had the hardest time keeping his pants on. When he finally made it to the bottom, you could actually see his bottom. The weather also brings back memories of my childhood. One regret I will always have is being unable to give both of my kids the environment that I grew up in. Our home was something special, and at the time I took it for granted. Long before smartphones, MP3s, and Facebook, we had no choice but to play outside. I had this old, rusty sled that was probably passed down from my brother and my sister, or maybe one of my cousins, I don't know, but I remember pulling it out of the barn every season. It was typically an adventure locating it because either I couldn't remember where I put it from the year before, or my dad tried to hide it because he was afraid that I might kill myself on a hill or something like that. I hope you're not picturing a plastic shed that most people have behind their houses these days. This barn was gigantic and old. Anyone who explored the loft had to be extra careful and watch their step so closely. Think about Indiana Jones in The Last Crusade. One year, my leg actually fell through the floor. I thought it was a goner. Once I safely removed the sled from the catacombs of the Great Pyramid, the dangerous stuff was soon to follow. The rope was the only thing on the sled in decent shape. Obviously, it had been replaced a few times. I know I tied a new one on myself once or twice. I began my long trek across the Arctic, pulling my sled behind me. My only protection against the elements were some warm clothes handed down from an unknown source and socks to keep my hands dry. And this never works for very long, by the way. Occasionally, thoughts of how I would be impossible to find until the spring if I were to get lost in the wilderness flashed in my head. Any trace of existence was quickly covered by the falling snow. Of course, at that age, we were all invincible, so any worries vanished as quickly as my footprints. Once I made it to the mountain peak, all I needed was a simple pause followed by a deep breath, and then I was ready to make my descent. The hill in itself was an experience, but the real roller coaster began as I entered the woods. Please understand something. I did not pull my sled through the woods. I never got off of the sled. I kept going full speed ahead. I was approaching light speed before I even entered into the forest. It was a lot like the speeder chases on Indoor, minus being chased by the stormtroopers, but trees would just zip and whiz by just like they were running toward me at the same time. If I was lucky enough to make it past the trees, rocks, and cliffs, and the hill eventually turned into a bluff, my journey ended safely in the river bottom. Isn't it funny how many times the preparation and the planning can be more thrilling and fun than the actual experience that we go through in life? I stayed up late the whole night before in anticipation of a big snow and school cancellations. I'd spent the evening planning out my adventure and how I would face any obstacles in the way, when in reality the whole story is simply about a kid and a sleigh ride down a hill. Looking back, I understand the tiny moments are as important as our giant life adventures and can never, ever be taken for granted. Sooner or later, everybody grows up. I'm Chris, and this was my story. What's your story? The Chris Top Program would love to hear it. Send it to chris@christopprogram.com, or you can send it from the contact page at christopprogram.com. If we love it, we'll narrate it on the show, and if you're in the neighborhood, we'll let you tell your own story. Don't forget to follow the Chris Top Program and subscribe on your favorite platform so you never miss a show. We hope to wabba with you soon.